Apple might be about to delete the dynamic island. And the wildest part is that they're acting like it's no big deal. The iPhone 18 Pro Max leaks just landed, and on the surface, they look like the usual annual Apple refresh. But the deeper you go, the more you realize this phone isn't playing the same game as before. We're talking about under-display Face ID, camera hardware that sounds suspiciously Android on paper, and a lineup strategy that feels like Apple quietly rearranging the chessboard while everyone's still arguing about bezels. And somewhere in all of this hype, there's one uncomfortable truth most people are ignoring, because if Apple gets this wrong, it won't just be a bad iPhone year, it'll be a bad direction. So yeah, let's talk about why the iPhone 18 Pro Max could be Apple's smartest move in years, or the moment they overreached. This year matters because the Pro Max is no longer just the bigger screen, bigger battery iPhone. Apple is quietly turning it into the experimental model, the place where new ideas get stress tested before they trickle down to everyone else. And if you've ever felt like iPhones have been playing it a little too safe lately, these leaks suggest Apple finally realized that refinement alone doesn't excite anyone anymore. The iPhone 18 Pro Max isn't trying to be universally loved, and that's exactly why you should care, because phones like this usually tell us where the entire industry is going next, whether we like it or not. Let's start with the rumor that caused the most chaos, because of course it did: under-display Face ID. According to reports, Apple is actively testing Face ID hidden completely beneath the display, which would allow them to finally remove the dynamic island altogether. The twist is that the selfie camera could end up pushed into the top left corner of the screen, and if that made you physically squint at your phone just now, you're not alone. Under-display Face ID feels inevitable, almost boring in its predictability. But moving the camera like that would be one of the biggest visual design shifts Apple has made in years, which is why I'm cautiously optimistic at best. It's exciting, but it also feels like the kind of thing Apple tests 10 times before quietly shelving it. Now, while the front of the phone is stirring debate, the back of the phone is where Apple seems unusually confident. The camera control button is reportedly losing its swipe gestures and switching to a pressure-only design. And honestly, thank you. Accidental swipes have been driving people insane, and this is one of those rare Apple changes that isn't flashy but will instantly make the phone feel better every single day. But that's just the warm-up, because the real headline is the camera hardware itself. The iPhone 18 Pro Max is rumored to be experimenting with a stacked 200 megapixel sensor. And yes, that number sounds aggressive for a company that spent years pretending megapixels don't matter. But this isn't about chasing specs for marketing slides. This 3-layer stacked sensor design could improve low light performance, speed up sensor readout, expand dynamic range, and even reduce power consumption at the same time, which is basically the holy grail of smartphone photography. It's still in testing, so nothing is guaranteed, but the fact that Apple is even exploring this tells you how serious they are about pushing the Pro Max into a new category. All of that sounds great on paper, but here's the part that actually matters. Imagine shooting video at night without watching your footage turn into a noisy mess the second the sun goes down. Imagine zooming in at a concert and actually recognizing faces instead of capturing abstract art. Imagine walking through London at dusk, pulling your phone out, and not worrying whether the shot will survive Instagram compression. That's what these upgrades are aiming for. And if Apple nails it, the Pro Max could finally feel like a genuine step above the smaller Pro in everyday use, not just on a spec sheet. Add Apple's renewed focus on AI-powered video processing through the A20 Pro's upgraded neural engine, and suddenly the Pro Max starts to look like a tool built for creators first and casual users second. faster HDR in low light, smarter computational photography, smoother video output, all working quietly in the background so you don't have to think about it. That's classic Apple when they're at their best, and it's also why expectations are getting dangerously high. Compared to the iPhone 17 Pro Max, this isn't a dramatic redesign year, and that's intentional. Apple isn't tearing the phone apart visually, they're reinforcing the foundation. While some outlets are understandably focused on the megapixel jump or the possible disappearance of the dynamic island, the more interesting story is how Apple is repositioning the Pro Max against both its own lineup and Android competitors. Samsung and Google have been swinging hard with camera hardware for years, and Apple's response here isn't louder, it's more calculated, fewer gimmicks, more consistency, and a stronger separation between the Pro Max and everything below it. Here's the unpopular opinion. The iPhone 18 Pro Max is not meant to be popular, and that's the point. If you upgrade every year, this phone won't feel revolutionary, and Apple is perfectly okay with that. But if you're on an older iPhone, especially anything before the 15th series, this could feel like Apple suddenly remembered how to surprise people again. There's also a long-term angle nobody's talking about, which is resale value. If Apple really limits the lineup and pushes more buyers toward Pro models, the Pro Max could end up holding its value better than almost any iPhone before it. In a year where prices aren't getting friendlier, that actually matters more than an extra camera trick. Of course, not everything here is sunshine and cinematic bokeh. That 200 megapixel sensor is still experimental, which means it could be delayed, scaled back, or quietly dropped altogether. Under display Face ID is exciting, but Apple has teased this future before and walked away when the tech wasn't ready. And then there's the price, which, let's be honest, is not going to make anyone smile. This phone will be expensive, unapologetically so. And if Apple really delays or removes the standard iPhone from the initial launch lineup, a lot of people are going to feel pushed into spending more than they planned. So here's the verdict. The iPhone 18 Pro Max isn't trying to impress everyone. It's trying to set a direction. If Apple delivers on even half of these leaks, this will be one of the most strategically important iPhones in years, not because it's flashy, but because it's focused. Now I want to know what you think. Would you give up the dynamic island forever if it meant better cameras and a cleaner screen, or is that a step too far? Drop your take in the comments, and if this video saved you from upgrading purely on hype, hit like, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next leak. Peace out.